Welcome back, dears. Today I'll explain about clauses. A clause is a group of words which has a subject, a finite verb, and forms a part of a sentence. So, first of all, you should keep in your mind that clauses are just a part of a sentence. It can be a complete sentence, but most probably it is just a part of a sentence. Okay? And in that part of a sentence, we can see a subject, a finite verb. A finite verb means it is a verb that will change according to the tense and the subject. See, in the example I have given, the lady who is wearing a red sari is my aunt. There, the lady. Only one lady is there. That is why I have used the word is there. The auxiliary verb is. And it is a continuous tense. That is why I have used wearing. And if it was past tense, the wearing will change into wore. So this is called a finite verb. The finite verb will change according to subject and the tense of the sentence. So in a sentence, in a part of a sentence, if we are having a subject, a finite verb, then we can say it is a clause. See here, the words I have written in bold, that is showing the subject. Who is wearing a red sari? Who is a subject and is wearing is a finite verb. If it was past tense, it will change into was wearing. So there, if I am saying about a past event itself, it will change, is wearing will change into wore. That is why it is called a finite verb. So in a sentence, part of a sentence which contains a subject and a finite verb is called a clause. Now let's focus on the features of clauses. First thing, a clause has a subject and a predicate. So subject and predicate, you already know that. Subject, except the subject, what all things are remaining in a sentence or a part of a sentence, that we can say it is a predicate. And it should also contain a verb, and it should be a finite verb. See, I have given two examples here. The bus going to school got a flat tire. See, in the bold, I have written going to school. We don't know who is going to school. Okay. So, there we are lacking a subject. We are just having a verb. But in the second sentence, the bus which was going to school got a flat tire. There we are having a subject and a verb. Which is a subject and was going is a finite verb. So, in the second sentence, we are having a clause. But in the first sentence, we are not having a clause. Now we can focus on the types of clauses, and majorly we are having three types of clauses, and the first one is independent or main or principal clause. Three names are there: independent or main or principal clause. These clauses have a finite verb and make complete sense. They can stand on their own. When a sentence has only one main clause, then the clause itself is a sentence. So in the beginning I have told you sometimes a clause can be a sentence, but most probably a clause is just a part of a sentence. But sometimes if it is an independent or main or principal clause, a sentence itself can be a clause. Okay, or a clause itself can be a whole sentence. But we should keep in mind there should be a finite verb and there should be a subject, and it should make a complete sense. For example, I sang a song. There I is a subject, sang is a finite verb. So this whole sentence itself is a clause and it is able to stand by its own. And without the help of any words or any sentences, it is making a complete sense. That kind of clause is called independent or main or principal clause. That is the first type of clause. The second type of clause is dependent or subordinate clause. Dependent or subordinate clause. These clauses are the ones that have a finite verb but do not make complete sense on their own. They make sense only when they are attached to an independent clause. See, I hope you completely understood about independent clause. Independent clause means it is a complete sentence itself and it is having a subject and a finite verb, and it will make a complete sense by itself. See in the example, I like music which was composed by A.R. Rahman. I Like Music, which was composed by A.R. Rahman. There, first I have written in bold, I like music. See, I is a subject and like is a finite verb. So it is making a complete sense. I like music. We are not having any question after hearing this thing. But see the second part, which is composed by A.R. Rahman. Which is composed by A.R. Rahman. We don't know. I can even say about a song. Okay, so we are having something lacking when we are hearing which is composed by A.R. Rahman. We are lacking something. We are confused. That type of clause is called dependent or subordinate clause. So in this sentence, I like music is the independent clause, and which is composed by A.R. Rahman is the dependent clause. The third type of clause is coordinating clauses. Coordinating clauses. See, in coordinating clauses, we can see a conjunction. That is a specialty. See, often in sentences, there are two or more main clauses which are combined together by a conjunction called coordinating conjunction. Each clause in such a sentence is of equal importance and can stand on its own. Such clauses are called coordinating clauses. See, example, when you are seeing the example, you will thoroughly understand it. I like music and I enjoy spending time with friends. See the first part, if I am taking I like music, I is a subject and like is a finite verb. It is making a complete sense. I like music. It is a dependent clause. Next one, and I enjoy spending time with friends. I is a subject. Enjoy spending time with friends. It is making a complete sense. It is also a dependent clause. When we are combining two dependent clauses together with a conjunction, with a coordinating conjunction, and here the conjunction is and, then that type of clause is called coordinating clauses. If we are having two or more independent clauses, then we can say it is a coordinating clause. So once again rewind it. Independent clause, it is making a complete sense by itself. Then we are having dependent clause, it is having a need to depend on another clause to a independent clause. It is depending on an independent clause. That is called dependent clause. And when we are having two or more independent clauses, that clause is called coordinating clauses. Sometimes we can see a clause will be acting as any other part of a sentence. In parts of speech, we are having 8 parts of speech, and sometimes this clause will be acting as an adjective, as an adverb, or as a noun. And according to that, we can divide that into another categories. And the first category is noun clause. Here, the clause will be acting as if like a noun in a sentence. The noun in the sentence will be the clause we are getting in the sentence. See, a clause that acts as a noun in a sentence is called a noun clause. For example, Rohit listened to what was told. Here, what I have written in bold, it is answering the question, listen to what? And we will get the answer, what was told. And there, what is a subject and was told is a finite verb. So it is having both the subject and a finite verb, and that is a clause. And this clause is actually the noun in the sentence. So when the clause and the noun, they are combining together, we will get the answer, noun clause. So when a clause in a sentence is actually the noun in the sentence, then we can say that is a noun clause. But but sometimes we can see we will be having just the subject, but we will lack a finite verb in the sentence. Then that is called the noun phrase. See the example, she found out the secret. There, the secret, that is a subject, but we are lacking a finite verb. Then that part is called a noun phrase. Only if we are having both the subject and the finite verb, it is a clause. But if we are just having the subject, then that is called a noun phrase. These are the features of noun clause. First thing, it will act like a noun in a sentence. Second thing, it will be the subject of the verb or the object of the verb. See the first example, that the incident would happen was certain. See, there was is a verb. Okay, and before the verb we have got the subject over there, and here the noun clause is actually the subject of the sentence, means the subject of the verb. In the second sentence, he told me that the trip was cancelled. He told me that the trip was cancelled. There, told is a finite verb, and that the trip was cancelled. That is a noun clause over there, and that is actually the object of the verb. What he told me, that the trip was cancelled. We are getting the object. So the noun clause will be the subject of the verb or the object of the verb, and it can be introduced by that, if, whether, and questions word like why or what. See, in the example itself I have written, we can use that, if, whether, and the question words like why or what can be there. And when we are framing a question with what is the answer we are getting, that will be the noun clause. See, in the example, the incident would have happened was certain. What was certain? We will get the answer that the incident would happen. So when we are framing a question with what, the answer what we are getting, that will be actually the noun clause in the sentence. So the next division is adjective clause. Here the clause will be acting as an adjective in the sentence. A clause that acts as an adjective in a sentence is called an adjective clause. And it can qualify any noun or pronoun in a sentence and is placed nearest to the word it qualifies. So we are already aware about what is an adjective. An adjective will be qualifying a noun or a pronoun. And if the clause is acting like an adjective in a sentence, we can say it is an adjective clause. Example given over here. The girl who is sitting on the last bench is my sister. So here the girl and my sister is the nouns over there, are the nouns over there. So immediately after the girl we can see who is sitting on the last bench. So I am giving a quality to the girl over there, that is a noun in the sentence. That is, I am qualifying the noun with the clause who is sitting on the last bench. There who is a subject and sitting is a finite verb. So we can say it is a clause, and if the clause is acting like an adjective, that is called an adjective clause. These are the features of an adjective clause. An adjective clause describes a noun or a pronoun, and it is introduced by whose, whom, who, which or that. And it should be placed as close as possible to the noun it describes. The introductory word of such clause may be omitted sometimes. So, like in the previous example I have shown you, the girl who is sitting on the last bench is my sister. There I have used the word who, and immediately after the noun we have used the clause. That is why it is an adjective clause. And sometimes we can even omit the introductory word. See here the example, this is the bag you were asking for. See, either I can write like in this way, this is the bag that you were asking for. But there is no trouble in omitting the word that over there. There will be no issues even if we are omitting the introductory part. The next division is adverb clause. Here a clause that acts as an adverb in a sentence is called an adverb clause. And adverbs means it will be just adding some additional stuff to the verb, adjective or another adverb itself. And we can again classify the adverb clause, and the first classification is an adverb clause of time. Okay, it shows a time of action. It will be representing the time in which the verb was done. See the example here. The match was stopped when it started to rain. The match was stopped when it started to rain. So here when it started to rain, it is showing it is an adverb of time there, adverb clause of time. And most probably we can see these words while we are having an adverb clause of time, and they are when, while, as, wherever, after, before or since. These words can be seen there. See here itself we can see when it started to rain. So easily we can identify that it is an adverb clause and it is an adverb clause of time. Second classification in adverb clause is adverb clause of place, and it shows the place of action. See, I looked for you wherever I could. So wherever I could is the adverb clause of place over there, and it we can by heart it that Wherever we are seeing the word where and wherever, it will be adverb clause and it will be an adverb clause of place. The next division, an adverb clause of manner. It shows a manner of action, how it has happened. See, it seemed as if he was lost. And here, as if he was lost is the adverb clause of manner. How it seemed? As if he was lost. So, as if he was lost is the adverb of manner, and it usually starts with as if, as though, in the way. These words can be by hearted. Okay, if we are hearing this word as if, as though, in the way, it will be an adverb clause of manner. Fourth division is an adverb clause of reason, and it shows a reason behind the action. She went to the office because her boss wanted to meet her. She went to the office because her boss wanted to meet her. Here, because is there. If we are seeing the word because, since, as or that, we can identify that it is an adverb clause of reason. And the last division is an adverb clause of comparison. We are comparing two things, two or more things. And it indicates a comparison of qualities. It is cooler than it was yesterday. So, I am comparing today and yesterday. So, if we are doing the comparison, we can say it is an adverb clause of comparison. And it usually begins with than, no less than, or as. Or if I am saying it is as cold as yesterday. There again I am comparing two things, yesterday and today. Then that type of adverb is called an adverb clause of comparison. Now the fourth division of clauses, that is relative clauses. A relative clause tells us which person or thing is referred to by the speaker. And it can also indicate what kind of a person or thing the speaker means. It is often an adjective clause which describes a noun or a pronoun. So, already I have told you about the adjective clause. Adjective clause means it will be acting like an adjective in the sentence. Likewise, the relative clause is also similar to the adjective clause. Okay, and it will be describing about a person or thing told by the speaker. And there we have the usage of many WH words, and the first division is use of who. We use who in a relative clause when we discuss about people and not anything. So if you wanted to describe about a person, we have to use the word who. The man who wore a black blazer suddenly disappeared. So I am describing about a person. That is why I have used the word who. Or the cat that jumped in is wild. Here I have used, instead of who, I have used that. The cat who has jumped in is wild. Instead of that, I have used the cat that jumped. So we can replace that with who. Now we can focus on the usage of which and that in relative clause. We are using which and that to refer to the things, not people. I know of a bakery that sells delicious cakes. I am just referring to a thing. So if we wanted to refer to a thing, we have to use which or that. Then if we are focusing on the use of that can be used both in place of both which and who. In the last example also I have told you we can replace who with that. And I have just now I have told you that we can use that along with which. So both the cases we can use that, and sometimes a word is used in specific cases. That is, if the adjective in the sentence is in superlative degree, there it is compulsory that we have to use that. Okay. He is one of the best tailors that I know of. Best. So it is a superlative degree. And if we are having the words like all, anything, none and nothing. Okay. There also we have to use, immediately after this word we have to use that. This is all that she has. I have used the word all. That is why I have to use the relative clause that. So already I have told you we can use that to refer to both a person and a thing. And now we can focus on the usage of whose. Where to use whose? We are using whose in adjective clause instead of his, her or their, mostly for people. Just to represent the people, we are using whose. See the example. The little girl whose bag was lost complained to teacher. there I am referring about a girl, a person. So instead of her, I can use whose. Then sometimes we use whose for things also, and there is an example. They arranged for a surprise party whose purpose I could not understand. There I am mentioning about a thing. So in order to represent the thing also, rarely we are using whose, but most probably we are using whose in order to refer to people. The usage of whom. Whom we are using in place of her, him and them. The lady whom we greeted turned out to be a stranger. So instead of using her, him or them, we can use whom. And we can use whom with a preposition also. And these prepositions are with and to. With whom and to whom. If we are seeing with and to, you can use there the adverb whom. And the last type is usage of where. We use where when we refer to a place and we use it in a place of there. Instead of there, we can use where in order to show the place. I visited a place where Mahatma Gandhi lived for a year. So instead of there, I have used a where. Now the last portion of clauses, that is the types of relative clauses. And we can divide the relative clauses into two types, defining and non-defining clauses. See the examples, then it is pretty much easy for you to understand. She is looking for the girl who lives in the new house. We went to a shop which sells grocery items. See, in both the sentences, we are just indicating something. In the first sentence, I am indicating which girl. In the second sentence, I am indicating which item or which shop. So, we are not particular about who is that. Already, we are not aware about it. If you are unaware about it and if you are pinpointing that, that is called the defining clause. We are just defining who is that. Here in the examples C and D, you can identify the non-defining clauses. She is looking for Rani who borrowed her book. We went to superstore which sells grocery items. See, in both these examples, we are mentioning about a person or a place we are already aware about it. Means in the sentence, the clauses who borrowed her book and which sells grocery items tells us which person or place is meant. But the thing is that we are already aware about it. See, already the girl's name is written there, Rani, and the grocery store's name is written there, Superstore. So already we are aware about it. There we have to use the non-defining clause. Here you can see the difference between defining and non-defining clauses. With defining clauses, we do not use commas and we can use that in place of who, which, and we can leave out who, which, that when it is the object. Simply, you just have to keep in mind that we cannot use comma in a defining clause. See, we stayed at a place you told us about. There I haven't used any commas. So easily you can identify that it is a defining clause. Okay. With non-defining clauses, we use commas and we cannot use that and we cannot leave out who or which. So in non-defining clauses, we are already aware about the person or the thing or the place. So there it is mandatory that we have to use the commas. See, Merigiri Vidya Mandir, which is near our house, is good. So already I have mentioned the name of the school. That is Merigiri Vidya Mandir. So if we are using the commas, there no need to use that, and there according to the person or the place. If it is a person, we have to use who, and if it is a place, we have to use which. That is mandatory in non-defining clauses. In non-defining clauses, we have to use commas, and accordingly we have to use who or which. But in defining clauses, that is not mandatory to use commas. It is not needed over there, and we can use that in place of who or which. And if it is an object, even we can leave who, which, or that. So this is all about clauses, and I hope you understood completely. And just go through the video one or two times, then you will be thorough with this. And if you have any doubt, please do clarify at the earliest. Thank you.